Welcome to CPHR Talks. This is something new. This is brought to you by CPHR Alberta. I'm Nicole Bourgeois, a specialist with stakeholder and community engagement with CPHR Alberta, and I'm going to be your host today. With me and joining me is our producer and sometimes co-host, Bailey Beauchamp, who's Director of Marketing and Stakeholder Engagement with CPHR. Thanks, Bailey, for being here. This is a first podcast for us going forward, and we're excited to bring this to our membership.
Yeah, first of many. We're really trying to grow something that is engaging with our members that's different. So it's not something we've done before. And I'm so excited that you're our first guest because Nicole and I have had the pleasure of attending a Great Place to Work conference and have brought back so much great pieces for our team. And it's so uplifting to be in that culture with everybody there who is celebrating their workplaces.
But I wanted to start off talking a little bit about what Great Places to Work, what does that mean? Great Places to Work Canada, and where do you think this fits in today's workplace?
Okay, great question. So, Great Place to Work is we're a global people analytics company. We actually survey about 25 million employees all around the world each year. So we have a lot of data. In Canada alone, we work with about 1,000 organizations, and our goal is to help them understand and improve their workplace culture through our employee survey and analytics tools. And then companies also have the ability or the opportunity, if you will, to be recognized when they've created a great workplace culture. And so many of you may have seen the Great Place to Work certified badge,
Yes.
the logo, right? So this is what's gaining momentum. And when companies earn that badge, they really display it with pride because it's a reflection of how their employees feel about working there, right? The only way to get the badge is if your employees love where they work, love the workplace culture.
For sure.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people know that's how you get recognized is through the employees themselves, which is like such a crazy message for a lot of organizations. You hear great stories about what they're doing, and yes, their revenues might be great, but you don't actually usually hear the employee voices. So I find it to be such a unique format, and I think that's what really brings it validation.
Yeah, well, it's a unique format, but it's to me the only format that makes sense, right? How do you tell if it's a great place to work? Well, just ask the employees; they'll tell you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, we did attend the Great Places to Work conference in Las Vegas, and it was a big conference. And I think both Bailey and I were there, and I think the most consistent comment we had was, wow, it's not about profitability. Wow, it's not the leadership filling in a questionnaire, putting themselves forward. It truly is the employee feedback on that organization.
Yes,
yeah.
but I will say this, when we talk about workplace culture and why we should even bother trying to create a great workplace culture, that's not just because it's a nice thing to do. We have 30 years of research that shows how investing in your people, creating that great culture will actually really support your business goals. That's why we're doing it, right? So, the business results and the culture, sometimes people think of those as being mutually exclusive, but they're so intertwined, and we have a lot of data that supports that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So when you're working with organizations or organizations are submitting themselves, bringing themselves to you through the criteria, what are some of those benchmarks that are looked at when you're going for that Great Places to Work piece?
So the process of becoming Great Place to Work certified is very simple. A company signs up to work with us. We survey their employees through Emprising. That's our survey platform.
Okay.
And if the company meets our minimum threshold, which is 65% positive, so at least 65% of employees must agree with all the statements on our survey, almost always or often. So it's a pretty high bar for agreement. It's not people on the fence. They have to really
Wishy-washy.
agree, no wishy-washy. Then they earn the right to use our Great Place to Work certified badge, and they also become eligible for other lists that we publish. So lots of recognition opportunities. Now, I work on the consulting side of the business, so for me, the badge is fantastic. But where the real value lies is when you can see what your employees said. We help companies unpack that data, understand what it really means, and most importantly, think about 2 or 3 things you can do that are going to improve your workplace culture in the coming year, right? So it's not about having a laundry list of items you need to improve on. It's really helping prioritize what are the 2 or 3 things that are going to give us a maximum impact.
Is there a minimum criteria for who can apply, like organization size, I should ask?
So we work with all industries, all sizes. As long as you have a minimum of 15 employees, you can be Great Place to Work certified. Some of our lists have slightly higher thresholds in terms of population, but any organization, as long as you have 15 or more employees, can become Great Place to Work certified.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I think every time we think of that Great Place to Work or those awards, you always think of these really large organizations that have dedicated departments that
Yes.
toe that line and are able to, fill out again those applications and stuff. You never think of those smaller organizations. I even think of our organization where we're 17 strong, and why aren't we?
Yes.
Right? Why aren't
Which is funny because everyone in our office would be like, our culture is amazing, and like, we don't need a sticker to prove it, right?
No.
But maybe the public does.
Yes.
Well,
Right?
and the thing is, remember, we're in Canada. So by far, the biggest segment of employers are small business.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I believe it's something like 97% of Canadians work for companies with less than 100 employees, or the threshold might even be smaller than that. So one of the things I love working about smaller organizations is they often have this organic sense of culture. Right? And so they
that's
don't
what
need to
you're
have a
referring
lot
to.
of programs. It's not about, necessarily the perks and benefits. It's about the relationships at work. That's what makes them a great place to work.
We often hear from the leaders when, they do receive great places to work status, right? And I think that's so important because that's really where it stems from. And great leaders are going to create those great cultures and identify what's not making a great culture too,
Yeah.
right?
So at Great Place to Work, our sort of motto is great starts with leaders, right?
Right.
It's impossible to have a great workplace without great leaders. And when we think about like who are the ideal candidates or which are the great, you think about sometimes, okay, the executive needs to buy in that this is important, and yes, that is absolutely true. But when you're sort of on the bus or driving into work each day, you're probably not thinking about the CEO. You're probably thinking about your leader, the person you report
Your
to on a
direct
day-to-day
report.
basis. And that can be a super powerful and motivating experience if you love the leader, or the opposite if you don't love your leader. And so this to me really reinforces the importance of that sort of leaders at all levels, but actually especially the frontline leader that can have a huge impact on the workplace culture. And we don't always, I think, fully appreciate how much of an impact they can have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that they also are missed in the development part in an organization, the succession planning. You're promoted because you're really good at your job. That's great, but now there needs to be some leadership development because it could go either way. If you're really great and your team is believing that, that's wonderful, but if you're not, what did we do as an organization that set you up to fail?
Yes.
Really. So being able to recognize that mid-management, right? Because that's where the work gets done. Let's be real.
Yes.
So that's really interesting that they are that looks at that direct level, right? Not
Yeah.
just the executive or the C-suite.
So with our survey, we do look at the different levels of leadership, and so those are some of the insights we share back with our clients, like, perhaps your employees are having a great experience, but frontline leaders, not so much, or mid-level. And so what's happening at that level where their experience is not as great as
Right.
the people that they're supervising. Often there's pressure, lack of preparation, lack of support.
Yeah, resources.
Perhaps some, even in some cases, some politicking going on, right?
For
So
sure. Yeah.
those folks are important, right? And we got to make sure we're setting them up for success.
The Marriott International has been recognized as a great places to work. Has the badge. Wears it with
well,
pride.
not only do they have the badge, they have been recognized on our world's best workplaces many times over.
Exactly.
And so that is really sort of the top tier of recognition. So Marriott is an organization that's committed to their people, committed to their guests. I'm going to say this wrong, but the philosophy is if we take care of our people, they'll take care of our guests, right? So it's such an honor to be here in the JW Marriott, experiencing that hospitality firsthand.
Yeah. I think it also trickles down from his leadership. And again, I refer back to when we saw Tony, or we fangirled a little bit
Yeah.
over him.
Sorry, Anthony.
Anthony.
We've already.
Yeah. I hope
formal.
he gets to see this and hear this.
You're not on Tony basis?
No, we're not yet. No.
But he was so impassioned with the way and how he talked about his leadership and the influence that the employees at any Marriott in the world has on him. That he can go and talk to anybody, from somebody who is working in the laundry room to the individual who is a concierge or working with that high level client. They mean the same. Their experience is just as important. It doesn't matter where you are in the organization. And I think that is attributed to their philosophy for sure. But being able to, benchmark themselves. They're benchmarking themselves each year as they
Yes.
maintain these statuses, right? If they
Yeah,
slip,
against themselves, and then the
Yeah.
other top tier hospitality organizations. And one of the things I love about hospitality as an industry is the connection between sort of your workplace experience and how you show up for your guests is crystal clear for most people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think they really understand that the work experience of that frontline desk associate is definitely going to impact how they show up for the guests, and they want that to be a exceptional experience. So there's usually buy-in for creating exceptional experiences for the employees themselves. So I love that. I think not all industries have it that crystal clear, whereas hospitality definitely does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one thing that I will say about Marriott is their listening culture is exceptional. And so they're not just an organization that sort of brings people in, inspires them, but they really do value the voice of their associates. And I think you're going to learn a few great things about how they actually not just listen to their employees, but act on what they heard. And I always say, an employee survey is not going to improve your workplace culture. In fact, it can have the opposite effect if you don't do anything with the information. So for Marriott, what really strikes me is not just how they gather that input from employees, but how they take action on it. Very impressive. Yeah.
Fantastic. Action.
Action.
That's the word. Listening and actions. Tell us just a little bit more about Great Places to Work. If there's one more nugget you could give us on how we can all become great places to work, Alison. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say listening to your employees is the most important communication skill. We could all spend a little less time talking and a little more time listening. It's something that comes up, but it's not just what you hear, but how you act on those results. So whether it's a Great Place to Work survey or your own internal survey or with another survey provider, I would just urge everyone to take that feedback as a gift. And it's not that you're going to do everything in 1 year, but really kind of listen to what your people are telling you with an open mind and an open heart, if you will. I think the tendency is to sometimes become a little bit defensive about feedback. We all do it. But when you can really listen to what your employees are telling you with an open mind, that is the key, I think, to success.
fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to know, what's your secret to getting people to participate in the surveys? Because that is a challenge.
Yeah.
We hear a ton and have experienced ourselves.
Okay, so for me, when I work with a new client, they will be coming in with whatever their participation rate is. And so let's say they're at 50% participation. What I tell them is the best way to increase participation is to actually say to your employees, thank you, here's what we heard, here's what we're going to do. When employees participate and they get you actually close the loop with them, that this is what the results told us and here's what we're committed to doing, guess what? Next year, your response rate bounces to 75%, and then it goes up from there. So then, for me, by far the number one way to increase your response rate is to actually acknowledge that you heard your employees. And there's going to be challenges in different industries. So if everyone's at a desk and they get a survey link, okay, it's easy. You know, reaching field employees, reaching employees that are never at a desk. We have lots of different methods for that. QR code. So my other thing, so number one, I would say is, you know, closing the loop with people. That will increase it. But number two, you really need to consider your unique workforce and meet people where they're at.
Right.
So if 50% of your employees work in the field and they're never on a computer, sending a link is not the best way to reach those people. So
Right.
so meeting people where they're at.
Where they're at.
That's great feedback.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. We're going to be new.
Great advice, I should say.
Great advice. More travel.
Yeah.
Let's go find them, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Alison Grenier from Great Places to Work. Really appreciate you taking some time with Bailey and myself on
pleasure.
CPHR Talks. This will be available on YouTube post-conference, and you'll be able to access it. And again, I encourage everybody, reach out to Alison and her team at Great Places to Work Canada, Great Places to Work US, international. Become one of those people that has pride in their organizations and wears the placard. So thank you again.
My pleasure.